Hey guys, welcome back to the Another Excuse podcast, where we chat to founders, creators, and self-starters about how they started and where they are now. Today's guest is Ryan Hornby, the founder of Sonder, a personal branding consultancy, and my boss. I feel like this conversation is slightly different because he is my boss, and I got to ask him a lot of questions that I haven't asked him before. We talk about things like how he founded and exited a model agency when he was just 21, why Sonder and his plans for Sonder in the future, how he goes about and thinks about hiring, and all the lessons he's learned about himself and running a business along the way. It's a really great conversation. Ryan is a great speaker, so I'm sure you'll learn a lot from this conversation. Enjoy the show. Hey Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today. I'd like to start in a slightly different place than usual. What's your view on university?
Interesting question. I suppose the first thought that comes to my mind is that education in this country is not fit for purpose. In as much as education in this country is like asking a monkey, an elephant, a fish, and a bird all to climb a tree. They all have very unique and amazing abilities, but not all of them can climb the tree. And I couldn't climb the tree. And that's why my second thought is ironic as someone who didn't go to university. I actually think that university, despite it being broken, is very, very important. And the reason for that is really simple. At Sonder, I hire based on an understanding that somebody could do a hard thing and not give up. And that's because working at a startup is hard, uncertain, very rewarding, but hard. So I want to know that the person that I hire can do a hard thing and not give up. And completing university is a good indicator of exactly that.
It's interesting that we value the other person's situation in the sense that I see the value in being forced into making a living for yourself and learning to be an entrepreneur, whereas I see my situation as conditioning for a normal job, that entrepreneurship seems risky and improbable. Why do you think that is?
Well, I can't speak to your specific situation, but I could probably surmise that it's because entrepreneurship is risky and is improbable. And actually, I think we live in an age, a social media age, where everyone receives gratification instantly and therefore seeks instant gratification. And actually, that is not how entrepreneurship works. Success is earned through hard work over a long period of time. And so I actually believe that my generation and the younger generation, Gen Z, should actually be more aware of the risks that come with entrepreneurship. As I say, it is risky, it is improbable, and it's not for everybody.
I understand it being a good signal when hiring, but that can mean younger people without a track record like you could fall through the cracks. Is it something you look for when hiring, or is it too hard to find those gems?
It's a great question, and you're absolutely right. If somebody didn't take a chance on me, despite my unconventional background and lack of education, then I wouldn't be sitting in front of you today. But the reality is that in the context of a startup, and that's what my business Sonder is, I have to weigh up risk. And I don't have the luxury of taking risks at a startup like Sonder compared to a larger business. So my hope and dream is that Sonder becomes large enough where I can take those risks and take a chance on those superstars, because they do exist. But unfortunately, right now, I just can't, and that's okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what do you look for in an employee?
Good question. I look for three main things, aside from being able to do hard things and not give up. Those are three things that are inherent, usually, in a human being. And that is talent, drive, and being a good human. The rest can be learned. And actually, ironically, I don't actually hire people with direct experience in personal branding, despite Sonder being a personal branding consulting firm. And that's because we do things the Sonder way. And ultimately, that means we do things differently to any other personal branding entity. And so if I was to hire someone with direct experience, they would have to unlearn in order to learn again. And actually, that's difficult and takes more time than learning from scratch. So really, those three things, talent, drive, and being a good human, are the three things that I look for.
Those are all very important things. I couldn't agree more. We've gone on a bit of a tangent, but I feel like you've had many careers in your professional life. Could we talk a bit about the different stages? You were a musician when you were young, right? What was that like?
You're right. I was a musician, and ultimately, that's all I ever wanted to be. I had no inclination that I'd ever be running a business. I always wanted to be a singer. And that's ultimately why I didn't do very well at school. I got kicked out of 3 schools and left with no qualifications, but that's an entirely different story. I was a musician for a while, but when that came crashing down, I ultimately found myself in a place where I had no learnt skills, no qualifications. But I was in a relationship, and I happened to want to be able to support that relationship. And love is a powerful motivator. So I decided that I was going to look for modeling agencies. And you might be thinking, why modeling agencies? Well, believe it or not, many moons ago, I did a bit of modeling. I now look like that guy's dad, but that's besides the point. I realized there was no modeling agencies in Ireland where I was living at the time. And so I decided to start my own. And I was in my partner's parents' kitchen when I came to this realization. And I turned to my partner and I said, I think I'm going to start my own modeling agency. And she laughed. And I said, why are you laughing? And she said, because I know you're serious. And that night, it had a name, it had an Instagram, it had a domain, and I was looking for offices. And that was it. Fast forward 3 years, we were the first modeling agency in Ireland to represent an Irish model at international fashion weeks such as London, Milan, Paris, and New York. We worked with major fashion houses like Givenchy, Louis Vuitton, Calvin Klein that had never been done in Ireland before. And we partnered with major agencies such as Elite, Next, IMG, again in the fashion capitals of London, Milan, Paris, New York. And ultimately, that business was built from winging it, a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of learning on the spot. But I did achieve a bit of success in that regard. That business was ultimately acquired. And then I decided that, well, I had the entrepreneurial thing down, but what I didn't have was any kind of formal rooting in the things that I'd learned. So I actually decided to take an unpaid internship at a large corporate consulting firm. And that internship taught me so much, so much. I am indebted to that internship. After that, I decided that I had enough corporate experience and entrepreneurial experience to go back out on my own. So I became a consultant, and I consulted with regards to brand, marketing, and business development objectives and issues for a variety of different businesses all around the world. I made a little bit of a name for myself in the consulting world. I did a TED Talk. I was featured in Forbes, and ultimately took up lots of interim positions as managing director of large full service marketing agencies. I was CMO of different tech companies, etc., etc. The one thing, though, that remained true throughout that time was I vowed that I would never, ever run a business ever again. And lo and behold, here I am running a business.
What an amazing story. And IAM sounds like a really successful company, and everything was working and going well. So why leave or change?
I'll answer that in 2 parts. Ultimately, the modeling industry is a very difficult industry to be a part of. The stigma that's attached to the modeling industry is actually ultimately correct. It's a dog-eat-dog world, or should I say it's a catty world. It really is. And that just wasn't the kind of world that I wanted to be a part of. I was constantly in conflict with my own personal morals and values. So from that perspective, I knew I had to find an out. But also, I'd built that business to be as big as it possibly could have been in Ireland in the current market. So I knew where my ceiling was. And when I reached that ceiling, it was time to move on.
Wow. So this then led you to starting a company called Sonder, your company.
Mm-hmm.
Could you describe what Sonder does and how it all works?
Sure. So we're a personal brand consulting firm. We build personal brands for founders, CEOs, and senior leaders at a variety of different businesses, including multiple Fortune 500 companies. What does that involve? Well, that involves curating intelligent content that lives predominantly on LinkedIn and Twitter, but we do Instagram as well. It involves writing articles and publishing those articles in relevant news outlets, including noteworthy media outlets such as Forbes and Entrepreneur. We build, manage, and market podcasts for our clients. We secure guest spots on podcasts for our clients. We secure other keynote speaking opportunity for our clients, including on the world famous TED stage. And we build paying communities whereby people can have closer access to our clients, their experience, and their expertise. And when all that is said and done, and we've achieved success for our clients in the context of their personal brands, a lot of our clients come to us and ask us to achieve the same success in the context of their businesses. So we end up supporting with regards to brand, marketing, and business development objectives and issues for their businesses.
Wow, it sounds like a lot. And what drew you to a company like Sonder?
Good question. What made me go from vowing to never run a business again to ultimately running Sonder? Well, two things predominantly. The first is that I believe that if you are in any way entrepreneurial in nature, then it's really difficult to down tools. It's a part of who I am, and I had to come to accept that. And so the reality is that despite how hard I might try to relax or semi-retire, I'll probably always be doing something entrepreneurial. And Sonder just happened to be the bug that bit me at the time that it did. But why did the bug bite me? Well, ultimately, Sonder is cool, right? It's a cool idea. We build personal brands for founders and CEOs. What's not to like about that? But cool businesses don't equate to successful businesses. Actually, businesses that become successful solve real problems. And ultimately, I discovered a problem in the context of my consultancy work. And that problem was, in the age that we live in, the era of fake news, of information overload, of access to any information that you want at any time, unfortunately, consumers no longer trust what businesses say. And that's actually reflected in the data. Over half of consumers say they don't trust businesses anymore. So what is the solution to that problem? Well, when I was thinking about that problem, I decided to look to human psychology for the answer. And ultimately, human psychology is abundantly clear that humans build relationships with other humans, not things, not entities, but humans. And that's why big corporations like Nike or Apple ultimately build their businesses to be personalities. You could describe these businesses using words that you would use to describe a human. So why not take that a step further and actually elevate the human behind the brand and give the consumers an opportunity to build relationship human to human? And that ultimately restores trust between consumers and businesses and leads to tangible results.
That makes sense. And what are you trying to achieve at Sonder?
Good question. To speak candidly, there was a gap in the personal branding market. There are personal branding entities that quantify success as being able to achieve reach and engagement for their clients, often blind reach and engagement. Those are vanity metrics. And although vanity metrics can feel good, they don't necessarily equate to tangible outcomes. And that's exactly how we quantify success, achieving tangible outcomes for our clients, opportunities for our clients, opportunities like press, speaking engagements, event invitations, more leads, shorter sales cycles, partnerships, investment opportunity, job opportunity, board positions, higher quality talent acquisition, and more. These are the results that we achieve for our clients more than just reach and engagement.
And building a team and a culture can be tough. What type of culture are you trying to build at Sonder?
Yeah, good question. I'll give you a snapshot of what's important to me and our business with regards to building a culture. We have an insatiable curiosity and love of learning. Rarely does one have the opportunity to chew the fat with international experts operating in the higher echelons of disruptive and industry-leading businesses. At Sonder, you learn about loads of different things, subjects including leadership, Web3, clean energy, gender inequality, sustainability, the psychology of dance music, and more. Every day really is a school day at Sonder, and having the ability to learn is of considerable value to us. That's why we ensure that the opportunity to learn doesn't just end when a client call does. We hold regular internal educational workshops led by industry experts on a variety of different subjects related to personal branding and beyond, including brand strategy, digital marketing, copywriting, public speaking, and more. We might not be able to offer shiny benefit packages, but we are going to offer our people the opportunity to grow and develop. We value transparent leadership. We openly talk about the money that comes in and goes out, why we make the decisions we do, and often make those decisions together. We work really hard to build a culture of transparency, fairness, and trust. And it's our hope that through transparent leadership, our people will learn a lot about how to build and manage a business. Another really important aspect of our culture is that if you want to grow and succeed quickly at Sonder, you can and will. If you go above and beyond to bring value to our clients in the business, we will go above and beyond to reward you for that. We want our people to grow with the business, exponentially so in comparison to other more traditional settings. And I'll give you one more. We're team players. Currently, every one of us at Sonder, from the top down, work together on every one of our accounts. Everyone has a seat at the table and everyone's voice is heard. We muck in if and when necessary, even if it's not our job. We hold each other accountable, we hold each other up, and ultimately we win together and lose together.
I agree. One thing that I found really valuable from working at Sonder is just how much we're able to learn from our clients. It's so valuable having those one-on-one chats with, well, not one-on-one, but like having their devoted attention to speak to them for an hour about the things they've learned, the lessons they've learned, their failures. It's amazingly valuable, and I've learned a lot doing it. Have you run into any challenges while building the company so far?
Good question. Loads of challenges. Every business I've ever been a part of, every business I've ever led has come with its own unique set of challenges. But a challenge that arises time and time again in the context of every business that I have led is keeping our employees motivated. Ultimately, we're a small business. We don't have the firepower to retain our employees like other larger, more traditional entities can. We can't offer weeks away abroad. We can't offer lovely pension schemes and bonuses, private healthcare and dental. And that is ultimately why we place so much emphasis on building a culture that people want to be a part of. My hope and dream for everyone at Sonder is that they feel like they are part of something bigger than just a job.
That's great. And what has been your most enjoyable moment of running Sonder so far?
Good question. I'll answer that in two parts. The first is I just love when we achieve something together. The feeling that I get when we achieve something that benefits our clients' lives or their business is unparalleled. When we achieve a speaking opportunity, a new lead, investment, a partnership, whatever it might be, that feeling of satisfaction that comes with achieving for our clients is amazing. And that's without a doubt the best part of running Sonder. And the second answer to your question is having the opportunity to work with incredible people. We are an eclectic bunch at Sonder. We are not at all the same, but we get on so well, and each one of us has value to contribute. And the opportunity for me to be in amongst the melting pot of experiences and personalities is one that I adore and have adored in the context of every business I've ever run.
I agree. I've learned so much from everyone at Sonder and really enjoy just going to work and having a conversation. You can just learn so much from someone, and someone from a different walk of life. It's really amazing. And how transparent are you with what goes on in the business, and why do you have this approach?
Yeah, good question. Well, ultimately, a lot of people will say that they are transparent in the way that they run their businesses, but actually they're not. They navigate transparency. They pick and choose when to be transparent and when not to be at times that suit them. I practice radical transparency. And what I mean by that is unwavering, unconditional transparency. The good, the bad, and the ugly is on the table always. I will always answer honestly any question I ever receive from staff member or client, because I believe that doing so is really the only way to build the culture that I'm talking about.
That's pretty interesting, because I feel like a lot of people are hesitant to have such radical transparency. And why do you think some people would decide not to be as transparent as you?
Yeah, good question. I think it's because they're scared that people will leave. And in the context of a startup, that can be very detrimental when someone does leave. But ultimately, that's actually a reason why I am so transparent. I want to separate the wheat from the chaff. I want to find out who is committed and who is not. And I want the people who are not so committed to leave, because I will be left with good stock. So actually, I highly encourage anyone who is concerned about being so transparent that it ends up in someone leaving to actually lean in to the fact and become even more transparent, so that you know that the people in your business are the ones who are absolutely supposed to be there and who will achieve success for you.
That makes sense. And why is personal branding so important? I think you've touched on it a bit, but do you have anything more on the topic?
Yeah, good question. Well, I've touched on how personal branding is a highly effective new way form of marketing conducive to achieving results, and how it solves a real world problem, i.e. it bridges the gap in trust between consumer and business. But I'll talk about another benefit to personal branding, and that is our clients have the ability to stand for something on a platform, and we have the privilege of being a part of that. A lot of our clients want to build personal brands to shout about something they're passionate about, something important, be that the inequality that we see in business in the context of women or minorities or ability, be that climate change mitigation or sustainability. Our clients, through their personal brands, make genuine difference. And so it is wonderful to be able to go to work every day and to take part in what I believe to be meaningful, purpose-driven work.
And on top of running a business, you're also an angel investor and speak on a panel at the monthly investor forum. I'd like to talk about the angel investing first. What do you look for in a company to invest in, and how did you get into this in the first place?
Ultimately, there are a bajillion things that I look for when investing in a business, but I'll boil those bajillion things down to just two. And those two things are, I look for a compelling founder. Not necessarily a founder with direct experience, but a founder that I can put my trust in and believe in to achieve success. And the second aspect that I look for is ultimately a business that makes sense, a business that solves a problem, because businesses that solve problems are businesses that become successful. And I want to see proof that your business can solve a problem. Don't come to me with an idea, with a promise. Show me with facts, with data, or as close to facts as you can possibly ascertain, to show me that your business solves a real world problem.
And when investing, how do you mitigate risk?
Yeah, good question. Again, loads of ways that I mitigate risk. Personally speaking, I don't actually invest in any industries that I don't understand or don't have any prior experience with. I like to invest in the context of strategic partnerships with the founders. However, the second way that you can mitigate risk is really simple. And I've already alluded to it, but I don't think I can emphasize this fact enough. Make sure that the numbers are right, that your financial forecast is sensible, that your growth projections make sense. Ultimately, as an angel investor, I look to break even at around 3 years and then make return between year 3 and 5. So if you're promising me the world tomorrow, that is going to ring alarm bells from many investors. And that is just one of the many metrics that matter.
So let's move on to the Investor Founders Forum that you're on the panel of. What kind of monthly discussions take place?
Yeah, good question. So we ultimately have 2 forums a month. One of the forums is an opportunity for new founders and seasoned founders, but mostly new founders, to pitch their business ideas and receive feedback from the panel. And the second is an opportunity for new founders to ask questions with regards to their business plan, deck, sales strategy, whatever it might be, but ask any and all questions that they want to of the investors on the panel.
And what value do you get from this? Doing it twice every month?
Yeah, good question. Well, There's the obvious value which I receive, which is ultimately opportunity to invest in exciting startups. But also, I love to be in a room with other hungry entrepreneurs, new and seasoned. That ultimately energizes me. And I think that's really, really important as a founder to continually pursue that kind of company and that kind of experience, because it is difficult as a founder sometimes to remain motivated. I know that every founder will experience a day where they just don't know if they can be bothered doing this anymore. It's just too hard. And those kind of experiences, being in a room with those kind of people, really does lift your spirits. It's a cliche, but founders are the company they keep.
Yeah, I can imagine that being a very valuable experience. And as I touched on earlier, I am fascinated by biases and social conditioning. How do you remain objective with ingrained biases?
Therapy. Really simply, therapy. If you asked me, and I know you didn't, but if you asked me for my one piece of advice that I would give to founders, it would be to go to therapy. And ultimately, that is because it is only through therapy and that work that we can truly understand our conditioning, understand our biases. Let me give you a real life example. When I was running I would find that I would burn bridges in relationships far too prematurely over almost nothing. It was through therapy that I realized that I have an abandonment complex. And so I burn the bridge before you can. It's a defense mechanism. And it was through therapy and understanding this that I could intervene and stop that from happening. To use a therapy term, I was able to engage my healthy adult and make a healthy decision. And that happens every single day in business, particularly in the context of managing people. And I dare say that should you focus on anything at all that will ultimately lead to success in your business, it is the ability to manage and get the best out of people. But in order to do that, you have to first understand yourself, your strengths, and your weaknesses.
That's great advice. And one thing I'm curious about is why continue when you're financially stable? What drives you?
Good question. And I alluded to this earlier, but it's so true, so I'll re-emphasize it. If you are in any way entrepreneurial in nature, you have been bitten by a bug. And when you have been bitten, I'm not sure if you actually have a choice to be anything else but entrepreneurial. I certainly don't think I do. And so ultimately, every time I try and settle down, a spark will ignite and I'll pursue something else. And I think I will continue to do that for the rest of my life and into retirement. And I'm sure many, many other entrepreneurs can relate to that fact. It quickly stops becoming being about money and it becomes about much, much more.
If it's constantly about growth, no matter what aspect of your life you're working on, is there a point where you're ever satisfied?
Good question. Ultimately, this is a challenge. And again, therapy teaches you to sit back and self-reflect on the progress that you have made. And when you do take the time to reflect, often satisfaction comes. But we're very busy as entrepreneurs, and so we don't often take that time. I highly recommend doing so. But on the other hand, I regularly talk about the importance of mentors. And as most entrepreneurs will know, in order to grow, you have to know. But sometimes, in order to know, you have to be told. And that's okay. And that's why mentors are so important. Just to digress very slightly, mentors have quite literally saved me years worth of making mistakes. And I actually believe that you should outgrow your mentor. A lot of people look for mentors in the upper echelons, but actually having a mentor that is just a step or two ahead of you in your journey can be more valuable. Many mentors who have achieved a lot of success forget what it's like to be you. And so it's healthy to outgrow mentors. But to get back to answering your question, I ultimately believe that we should outgrow those mentors until we die. We are never void of the need to learn and grow and develop. And actually, an entrepreneur who believes they are void of that need is an entrepreneur with a downfall coming. And I hope that I never, ever feel that way.
So you spoke about mentors there, and I agree they are extremely important. But Do you have any advice for how to go about finding a mentor that is just a bit above you? How did you go about doing that throughout your career?
Yeah, good question. Controversially, I would suggest that you go and prove yourself to your desired mentor, be that through free work or offering some kind of value in hope that they will return that value to you. Again, we live in a world where we seek instant gratification, but ultimately, I truly believe that we have to earn the right to receive value and be mentored. So if you're listening to this and you're looking for a mentor, think to yourself, what are you willing to do to put yourself in front of people? Have you just sent an email on LinkedIn, or are you going to send them a physical gift? Receiving physical gifts releases oxytocin and various other hormones, relationship building chemicals. Receiving gifts is powerful. That is a way that you can separate yourself from the 99% of other people just sending emails. And I'll quickly tell you a story, which you can include in this or not, it's up to you. But I once had an individual apply for a job that didn't exist several times in the context of IAM. She sent email after email after email to me and all my staff. And we ignored her every time because there was no job for her. Then one day, I went into my office and on my desk, there was a package. I opened the package and inside of it was a beautiful leather binder, real leather, with my initials engraved on the front. And inside this binder was a beautifully printed portfolio. And ultimately, receiving that gift did two things. It released all those chemicals, but it also showed me that this person was willing to go the extra mile and was intelligent enough to separate herself from the 99% of people who don't. And actually, I'll give you a bonus thing that it told me. It also told me that the quality of her work was excellent because the quality of the gift that I had in my hand and the thought and time and effort that went into curating it is the same thought and time and effort that was going to go into this person working for me. And we offered her a job. So I'm living testimony to the fact that receiving gifts and thinking outside the box works.
I agree. I think it does work, and not many people think or consider those approaches. They think that it's just the normal avenues. You fill in an application and you don't get that job and you sort of give up and move on to the next one. But if you really want a position or want to ingrain yourself or etch yourself in the minds of those people making hiring decisions, then you need to do something different. You need to stand out.
It wasn't long ago that salesmen and women actually would go out and door knock and build relationship in person with people. Business used to be done on the golf course, at fancy restaurants, at sports events. Prospects were wined and dined and invested in over considerable amounts of time. Salesmen and women went to extreme lengths in order to win. And even though that wasn't very long ago, we have completely forgotten about those principles that have stood the test of time over literally millennia. We have become lazy. And so if you're listening to this, you can separate yourself from the masses by doing something so simple as just sending a physical gift, especially in 2023, where the physical holds more value than the digital. For example, what would you rather receive, a handwritten letter or a text message? You'd rather receive a handwritten letter every day of the week, and that's because we live in a digital age where the physical has become scarce. So now more than ever, you can cut through the crap and achieve success by sending physical gifts.
I agree. That's great advice. Well, thank you for joining me today, Rai. I really appreciate you taking the time. If people want to find out more about you and Sonder, where could they do so?
You can find out more on my LinkedIn or indeed Sonder's LinkedIn. And Byron, thank you very, very much for having me today. I've very much appreciated your time.
Thanks for listening. I really appreciate you making it all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed the episode. One more quick reminder before you go. I have a weekly newsletter by the same name, Another Excuse, where I cover 4 topics: something that has changed my perception, a tool that could be useful to you, content that is actually worth consuming, and a concept that I try break down and explain. If this sounds of any interest to you and you need a kick up the arse, then you can subscribe at the link below. Thanks for joining me again, and I'll see you next week.